If someone tells you there's only a few select meta playbooks that you can use if you want to win games in Madden, you need to look them in the eyes and tell them no. Today, my goal is to give you guys the skills and knowledge needed to run whatever playbook you want and be successful in the virtual gridiron. In this video, I'll be going over how to find the perfect formation for your style of play, how to adjust to the variety of defenses you may see, and I'll be giving my own example using the tips in this video of building a really cool off-meta offense that I got the idea for impulsively scrolling Twitter the other day. But first, before we get into that, we need to understand what the current defensive environment looks like. What are the defenses that you'll see most of the time, and what problems do they present? Knowing this ahead of time will save you the major headache of labbing up a new offense only to realize it just doesn't work online. The first thing we need to look for is where is the pressure coming from. Last year in Madden 23, the overwhelming majority of pressure was sent off the edge or from the slot using blitzes such as Spinner and DB Fire 2 out of the $3-2 formation. This year in Madden 24, in response to a slight buff in offensive line logic, keyword slight, the meta has shifted towards interior pressure. The common blitzes you'll see now are the free safety zone blitz at a $3-2, which gets a middle linebacker free through the A gap, as well as the 4-3-6-1 shed defense, which bunches up 4 rushers on the center and guards, causing a free rusher to come in relatively frequently. The second thing we need to look at is what kind of abilities are our opponents using. In years past, pass rush abilities such as Edge Threat, Double or Nothing, and El Toro have been used to wreak havoc on O-lines and sack the quarterback. In this year's Madden, outside of the few cards that get the instant on unstoppable force X Factor, the majority of defensive ability points are spent on deep zone KO abilities, which cause incompletions just by making contact with receivers on any deep throw outside the hashes. The last thing we need to look at is what are the physical attributes of our opponent's players? What makes them unique? Knowing the physical makeup and ability setup of defenders is super important. For example, right now in MUT, the meta is abnormally tall safeties with lurk artists, making it very hard to throw over the top of them. Pay attention to the height, speed, and abilities of the players you face, as that's going to dictate what will and won't work on offense. Now that we know we're going to be seeing interior pressure, coupled with deep zone KOs protecting the sidelines, and giant lurking linebackers and safeties over the middle, we can begin to build our offense. The first thing you want to do before even picking your offense is deciding what you want your offensive identity to be. Do you want to be a pocket passer or someone who rolls out? Do you want to be a traditional runner or someone who runs an option offense and uses their quarterback in the run game? Knowing this will help you decide which playbooks and formations might work for you. For example, if you want to run RPOs, the Eagles playbook might be a good place to start because naturally they run a lot of RPOs. If you want to run the triple option, the Rams offensive playbook might not be the best place to look with Matt Stafford at quarterback. Now that we know what kind of offensive player we want to be, it's time to start looking at some formations. General rule of thumb is to look for routes first, then the alignment of the formation second. For someone who wants to be a runner on the same premise, find good runs first, then look for advantageous alignment second. In the passing game, routes that you want to find in your formation are corners, crossers, post, unique wheel routes from wide receivers, things you can't normally hot route to. To take this to another level, if you're someone who likes to pass from the pocket, it's important that you stretch the field horizontally. This means looking for routes that pull the user or middle defenders in 2 directions, forcing them to choose one or the other. The simplest example of this, and the one I often try to emulate, is to play verticals out of gun bunch. Watch here as the crosser from the point receiver and the wheel route from the tight end stress the defense horizontally, creating a wide open receiver. As someone who wants to roll out in their offense, it's significantly more important to stretch the field vertically versus horizontally. Here we want to look for deep corner routes or crossers to stress the defense down the field and threaten huge gains. This forces adjustments for the defense, often pulling the user down the field, leaving the quarterback scramble and underneath throws wide open. My favorite way to do this on a consistent basis is with a flood concept, just a streak, corner, and flat route. Roll out with your quarterback and make an easy read. In regards to finding good running plays, it's a lot simpler. You just want to find plays that are consistent. One of the downfalls of running in Madden is random sheds or plays that take too long to develop. For example, in certain plays where the guard pulls, he won't move fast enough, giving the linebacker a free shot at the running back. In my opinion, RPOs tend to be the most consistent blocking runs, and so ideally you would like to find a formation with a few of them. Moving into the second aspect of finding your perfect formation, we're going to be looking at alignment. As a pocket passer, like we stated earlier, you want to butter your toes stretching the field horizontally. Now, this doesn't mean you can't stretch the field vertically, but those routes tend to take longer to get open and are hard to hit on an every play basis, particularly with interior pressure coming your way. My favorite alignment to stretch the field horizontally is compression. Due to the proximity of receivers in formations like bunch or tight, I find it easier to create 2-on-1s on defenders in zone and create rub routes on defenders in man. If you're looking to pocket pass for a majority of the game, A safe bet would be to look for a formation that is compressed. Inversely, if you want to roll out on offense, I prefer at least one receiver out wide on the same side as the corner route, crosser, or post you're trying to throw. This allows us to clear out deep zones without obviously giving away the fact that we are trying to run a flood concept. Bonus tip, if you ever see someone in compression motion out one of their receivers, they are likely running a flood concept. Another interesting note about running a rollout offense is that ideally you want to be under center. The angle quarterback creates rolling out under center is significantly sharper than when in shotgun and makes it harder for defensive ends to contain you. So the optimal rollout offensive formation would be under center with a wide receiver out wide, making it easier to run flood concepts. Lastly, there's two ways to really go about formations in regard to the run. You could either be balanced / symmetrical, which provides you the element of surprise in regards to the direction you are running, or you can be heavily overloaded to one side of the field, which for the most part telegraphs your run but provides better blocking and a chance to rip huge runs. In my opinion, this year some of the best runs can be found in overloaded formations. They tend to have really good RPOs, and if I want to steer you in the best direction, I'd say lean towards overload formations for your run game. Now that we have found our perfect formation, we need to know how to make adjustments to the different defenses we may see. Every formation has its strengths and weaknesses. When someone sells out to stop your strength, you need to be ready to counterpunch. Let's start with the looks you'll see as a pocket passer. Ideally, if you're stretching the field well horizontally versus zone, your opponent is going to start manning up routes and choosing one to use himself. The easy way to attack this is to look to fill the space vacated by a man defender with a route from another receiver. A lot of times, the best option for this is the halfback. In this example here, the tight end wheel is manned up, leaving the halfback in route wide open to fill the space. Versus a pure man look as a pocket passer, you want to find stuff that gets open quick. Oftentimes, opponents won't man up your running back, making him a great option to throw for an easy gain. Another thing to remember is tight end drag routes also do a great job versus man, as well as your wide receiver zigs. These short concepts, paired with your usual man-beating corners, crossers, and posts, are easy concepts to set up when your opponent starts playing heavy man coverage. As a player who rolls out often, your adjustments to man and zone are somewhat the same, but slightly different than a pocket passer. With a killer rollout offense, opponents are likely going to start manning up your deep corners, posts, and crossers. One weakness of rolling out is you can't freeform well, which makes it a lot harder to beat man. I personally have two answers to this. Sometimes it's as simple as putting the receiver who is manned up on a man-beating route like a drag or zig, something to change the pace and throw your opponent off. The second, and my personal favorite thing to do, would be to motion over a player like a halfback or another receiver and use the hot route master ability to put him on a corner route, catching your opponent off guard. Versus a pure man look, even as a rollout player, I would recommend refraining from rolling out at least at the beginning of the play, just to give enough time for space to clear up for you to scramble. Route combo wise, the solutions here are very similar to the pocket passing section mentioned earlier. One thing I would like to add are versus cover zero looks, don't be afraid to throw your tight end on a streak and let it eat. A good tight end will almost always win with no safety help over top. If you do want to roll out and throw versus man, I highly recommend you set your feet in freeform. Man coverage versus regular pass leads is a bad combo. For the runners out there, I don't believe there are any surefire ways to adjust a run that's getting stuffed or shot. You can try double teaming and IDing certain defenders you need to be blocked, but I believe your best bet is to incorporate some of the passing tips mentioned in this section just to get the defense off your back and open up some run lanes. All right, it is time to finally put this thing all together. So for any of you who've seen a video of mine before, you would probably know that I am a Niners fan. And the way that I like to play Madden is by taking things I see in the NFL and implementing them into how I play the game. So the other day I was on Twitter watching highlights from like the Niners Super Bowl in 1989 because God forbid I rewatch anything from the most recent Super Bowl. All jokes aside, one thing that stood out that I thought was really cool and caught my eye was the use of split running back formations. In Madden 24, these would be the formations known as near and far. With this inspiration from Twitter, I decided to build an offense out of some version of these formations. If you want to copy what I do here, these formations are all found in the West Coast playbook. To begin, I need to narrow down the specific near or far formation that I wanted to run a majority of the time. To do this, I chose an offensive identity, with the knowledge that everyone and their mother was going to be pressuring me up the middle, as well as how hard it would be to throw over the middle with the literal power forwards out there on defense, as well as the flukiness of deep zone KOs bracketing the outside of the field. I made my decision. I would be taking my talents to Rollout Nation. Choosing this identity gave me the option to avoid all three of these issues. In return, I would just have to take on the new enemy of glitchy contains, slot corner blitzes, and pesky man coverage. My first matter as a member of Rollout Nation was finding the deepest running corner route possible out of any of the near or far formations. There were a few good candidates up for consideration, but ultimately I arrived on PA strong flow out of the near pro formation. This corner gets over 30-yard zone drop flats and comes pre-packaged with a stock crosser from the outside receiver on the backside of the formation, which is a route that can't be created normally or with hot route master on most occasions. Going along with having my favorite route, the near pro formation also had my favorite alignment of the West Coast split back formations. With a wide receiver out wide on both sides and a tight end and 2 running backs in tight, I could run a flood concept without motion like we mentioned earlier. But that isn't even the number one thing I ended up liking about this formation. Being able to motion either running back around to create unique looks and route combos is something I fell in love with and a phenomenal tool in adjusting to defenses. As I took this offense into head-to-head, I found results immediately. Versus what is a majority zone meta, hitting rollout corners had me moving down the field and scoring points with ease. Not having to deal with random unblocked blitzers up the middle was awesome, and making throws without the fear of a player on the line of scrimmage intercepting my pass was a welcome sight. Being able to take advantage of the 2 running backs in the flats was a great defense against slot corner blitzes. Additionally, it allowed me to take advantage of some of the new abilities in MUT, such as backyard running back, to enhance this offense even more and added to the fun. But as we all know, nothing in life is perfect. I quickly came to realize that manning up my deep tight end corner often gave it fits getting open, and the inaccuracy of freeform throws on the run made things complicated. Without my tight end creating a hefty chunk of separation, this pass often became unthrowable, leading to my offense stalling. But that is not the end of this story. As mentioned earlier, being able to motion the split backs around the formation was a godsend. My favorite being audibling the fullback over to the weak side tight end position and using Hot Route Master to create a backside flood concept. Versus most zone coverage where my main tight end was manned up, this solved the issue completely. From here, I began freestyling and trying different motions all over the formation to create unique matchups versus whatever adjustments my opponent was making. It got to a point where I was pretty much motioning someone every play to create a different look and something my opponent wasn't expecting. Versus pure man, my favorite setup was putting my strong side tight end on a crosser to pair with the weak side wide receiver crosser to create a deep meshing concept. When my opponent started selling out to stop that, I added a slight wrinkle, resulting in a huge play. From what started as a simple Twitter binge reminiscing on times where the 49ers didn't break my heart. By the way, that's like a decade and some change before I was born, so my heart's been in shambles for like 23 years. Anyway, it turned into a really cool and super viable off-meta offense in Madden 24, and I believe you can do that with any playbook in the game following the principles I outlined in this video. But if you're still unsure on what playbook you want to run, or just want a simple step-by-step guide on how to run an offense, check this video out right here where I use the steps in this video to run the 49ers offense.